It's on. We're definitely seeing those conditions once again across the area. Hurricane Francine advisory at 1 p.m., 90-mile-an-hour winds, lots of heavy rain currently falling all across Louisiana, even New Orleans dealing with some torrential rain as the storm really is not that much closer as we head into the next few hours. Still a Category 1 hurricane as we look at the latest. So right now, that eye currently 173 miles away from Galveston. Kind of gives you an indication of how close this storm is, even though it's not heading towards Houston or Galveston. So as we look at closer look, even portions of I-10, even New Orleans dealing with heavy rain at the current moment. And they're also going to start seeing those winds pick up too as we head into the next few hours. One thing to note is that there's an upper level disturbance, a trough that's currently over Texas. You have a lot of dry air that's currently over Texas. That as we head into the next few hours, that dry air is coming into contact with Francine, and it's going to keep it as a Category 1 strength as it makes its way closer towards land. Of course, when it makes that landfall, it's going to lose that fuel going into the coming days. But looking at the winds right now, you're able to see the buoys that are currently over the Gulf of Mexico, seeing 60-mile-an-hour winds. That ships show 241, even 62-mile-an-hour winds just on the southwest side of that eye as it makes its way closer towards the Louisiana coast. So as we look at the latest track of this, we are expecting a landfall later on this afternoon by 7 p.m. as a Category 1 hurricane, and it's going to continue its track up north, crossing I-10. New Orleans likely to get some impact from this storm as we go into the coming hours. So definitely expecting this to continue its track towards the Louisiana coast going into the next few hours. So looking at the future track, as you see the center of that circulation, it's about to make landfall. It's expected around 5-6 o'clock is when we're going to see that landfall. And then closer as we get looking at the future track wind gusts, we could very well see those 100-mile-an-hour winds up along the coastal areas. And in turn, as the storm approaches and moves closer, we're going to see that storm surge effect for the Louisiana coast. So expect between 3 to 5 feet of water inundation across the coastal areas, even 5 to 10 areas where you see the just south of New Orleans. So folks off to the east of us, definitely in for Francine as we go into the coming hours. We are seeing little impacts with this here across southeast Texas. Most of the tropical storm warnings are well to the southeast of us, and we're going to see just a little bit of rough waters, especially out in Galveston. So if you are along our coastal areas, just keep in mind that we are going to see those very little impacts as the storm is moving off towards Louisiana with those hurricane watches and warnings still in effect. There is a lot of other disturbances out in the Atlantic Basin. These have a low chance of one just off the east coast of the U.S., 10% chance just off the coast of South America, about a 30% chance. But the National Hurricane Center has now established Tropical Depression 7 that's just off the coast of Africa. So that is really going to remain over open water. We're not expecting any threat from that in the coming days, but just keep in mind that that coastal flood watch will be in effect until 4 p.m. on Wednesday as we go into the next couple of days. So we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly a bit calmer for us here across southeast Texas, but that's not the case for folks that are just down the street, down the road, or down the highway rather, in Louisiana, as they're going to see the impacts from this storm as Hurricane Francine, still a Category 1 storm, still expecting to remain a Category 1 as it nears the coastal Louisiana there. Look, moving northeast at 16 miles an hour. This is as of the 1 p.m. advisory. Not much change really we've seen with the forecast within the past few hours. It's remained relatively the same. But one thing to note that for folks that are along I-10 in Louisiana, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, even New Orleans, they're dealing with that torrential rain at the current moment, and those winds and conditions are going to be deteriorating at least in the coming hours, especially as that eye wall moves closer inland. So might even see some possible tropical storm force winds, even maybe Category 1 strength winds off in New Orleans as that eye is currently moving off towards the coastal areas. We're dealing with mostly few showers here across the Houston area, but just keep in mind that as we go into looking at the next few hours, that we are expecting a landfall in the coming hours, at least maybe between 5 and 6 p.m. as it will remain a tropical storm strength as it moves into southern Mississippi. So they could still see some torrential rain and possible flooding along I-55 from New Orleans to Jackson. So looking at that future track showing that moving off towards New Orleans, torrential rain expected, more likely that they're going to get some really direct impacts from that storm as it moves into New Orleans, as well as those that torrential rain in terms of that there. So looking at the future track wind, once again, hurricane strength winds expected for Grand Isle, even South Pass, and then going into New Orleans by Wednesday night. Tonight, we are expecting that to continue into southern Mississippi. So very indirect impacts here across southeast Texas, something to keep an eye on as we are in the peak of hurricane season. There's several other disturbances out in the Atlantic basin. So always stay up to date with hurricanes in terms of the rest of this month and into the months of October. And we're giving you the latest of Francine, even though it's not affecting us here in southeast Texas. But we are seeing this giving not really too far away from us as we see that center of that eye, but around 170 miles from the Galveston coastal areas as it's just whizzing by us there. So of course you can always stay up to date with the latest weather forecast on KHOU.com and on the KHOU 11 app.